I am a midwife and a registered nurse. I was trained in New South Wales, and I never had any plan of being anything health related. But when I was about to put in my university preferences quite a while ago, in a church service, someone had done me the favour of printing on the back of the bulletin some maternal health statistics. I was comparing maternal mortality in Australia to Papua New Guinea, our nearest neighbour. I remember sitting there and I was so angry that it was so different. And I heard God say to me, this is what I want you to do. I want you to impact maternal health. So I trained at the most high-risk hospital in Sydney and learned every kind of crazy obstetric thing that was going on. And then I was like, well, what next, God? And I was offered the opportunity to travel to Thailand and go to Burma or Myanmar and train traditional birth attendants. And that was just a short-term trip in 2006, but it hooked me. So I want to talk to you about my journey with the mostly Karen people of Burma. I love these people. These are my family. And as I talk, some of the things maybe aren't so easy to hear. And I don't tell you this to make you feel uncomfortable or to pity them. I believe that we're all the same wherever we're from. We all want to love and be loved in return. We all want to look after our families, and we want safety, health, and education. And so this is my story of what I'm doing, I guess. I have spent the last 5.5 years setting up a clinic 50 kilometres from the Thai border. It was not a sanctioned clinic. I don't know how many of you know what's happening. So this is the map up here, what's happening in Burma, but there's been a civil conflict for greater than 60 years. So the ethnic parts of Eastern Burma have a maternal mortality rate of 721 women dying per 100,000 babies being born. The comparison is 6 per 100,000 here in Australia. So Thailand, on whatever side, but the brown section is heavy, dense jungle, and it's where the Karen people have been forced to run to set up their lives. So because they're running so often, housing is simple bamboo structures, very few cement buildings, actually no cement buildings in the area that I've been working. And so as a result, there's been minimal health care. So we were invited by the Karen people to set up a clinic in this place. It's 50 kilometres from the Thai border, but you can't just get in a car or a motorbike and get there. It involves a ride on the river and then a lot of hiking, so 12 hours worth of hiking to get there. So everything that we've had at the clinic we've carried in. And this is the outside of the clinic. And one thing that's hit me a lot is not just the process of giving women a healthy pregnancy and birth, but what happens after that doesn't happen. So most women will deliver at home in their village. They don't know the importance of antenatal care. And after many years of being a midwife, this year for the first time I had my first maternal death, and for 100% preventable reasons. And these two little guys, the littlest guy, he'll never know his mother, he'll never remember her, and he was happily playing while his 6-year-old brother sobbed and held him. And that's sad, but the ongoing consequences of that are equally sad. And the next couple of pictures all show another little girl who lost her mother, and then a family of children who lost this little girl, I think this is a really positive. Her mother passed away, but this couple in the village had been trying for more than 9 years to have a baby and hadn't been able to. And the father gave the baby to them because he couldn't manage his field and look after the baby. So he gave them the baby and asked them to be her parents. And they came to our clinic asking for milk powder support. Now, keeping in mind that everything that we give from the clinic, we've had to carry the 50 kilometres to get there. So milk powder's kind of heavy, it's kind of expensive, and we do it when we can and when it's possible. But we actually taught this mum to breastfeed herself, even though she's never had a baby herself, and she's now 100% caring for that baby, and that baby is in every way her daughter. But for her, that's a great outcome. But for most of them, once the mother passes away, the ability to get an education, to go to school, it doesn't exist. This little girl in the pink shirt, she's 13 years old. Her mother died giving birth to her little sister, and as a result, she was pulled out of school to look after her sister. And so she loved school. You know, these kids, when they get the opportunity for education, they really love it. And she kind of resents her little sister, and the dad had to move back to the village, so the school in the village only goes to grade 4 anyway, but he needed family support to help look after the family. So it just really places this passion on my heart for maternal health, carrying everything 50 kilometres, and that's just the very edge of the jungle. It's not sustainable. And we're interested in sustainable healthcare. We're interested in not being the white saviour going in and doing it all. So this year, despite a lot of cynicism from a lot of people, we're taking a new step in a slightly different direction. At the beginning of the year, God really spoke to a few of us on our medical team, and there's a passage in Isaiah that he used, Isaiah 43 verse 19, and it says, "Can you not see? We're doing it a new way. I'm doing new things. We're making streams in the desert and paths in the wilderness." And to me, that was like, with him, you can do anything. And so we're taking a step up, and we're trying to, I guess, do things legitimately. We're trying to take advantage of the fact that there is a kind of democratic process happening in Burma or Myanmar right now. They've just had an election. Aung San Suu Kyi has effectively won the election. The military still has a majority, and the military don't necessarily have respect for the government, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. But we're making steps to have a fully community-based project that's owned by the locals, and they're in the process of registering it with the government. And we're going to start a training that is more than the 1-year training that we've been able to give up until now. And I'll be responsible for the midwife component of that. So we'll have it'll work out being a total of 4 years of intense midwife training. And the dream is that our midwives will stand up to the quality of midwives we have here in Australia, and that they will go back to their remote communities and strengthen those jungle communities. I'm not quite sure what the next picture is. So this is the first breech baby that we had at the clinic. The mum had had 2-term stillbirths prior to this, so this was her 3rd pregnancy and first baby that she got to take home. And for these guys, it was the first birth they saw, and it was feet first. So we tend to see a lot of the high risk, the complicated, and we see it at the 11th hour. So trying to get normal births for our guys is actually really difficult, because women will deliver in the village. So really trying to focus on having strong, calm, confident, loving midwives in the village setting, with access to antenatal care is really important. I've become jack of all trades. I take x-rays, I do ultrasounds, I check blood groups, I look under the microscope, and in learning how to do those things, I'm then able to teach those extra skills to the guys I work with. I don't work on a team on my own. There's a group of us, and we do it together. But yeah, that's jungle blood grouping. So when you go to the lab and find out whether you're A, B, AB, or O, essentially that's what's happening. Now, sometimes healthcare is really simple, and you see the simple things a lot. You see the diarrhea, the malaria, common respiratory problems, but then you also see things that are not necessarily easy to manage in the jungle. And this girl here in Gumwipo, and her name means smiling flower. She's 19 years old and she got brought to us in a hammock. There's no roads to be able to get on a vehicle and drive, so men from her village had carried her 2 days in a hammock to get to us, and they honestly thought that this was their Hail Mary, their last ditch attempt, and they brought her to us, and I was able to very quickly identify her problem, but it was a molar pregnancy that had turned into cancer of her uterus. But it's really great. It's we say that there's a 90% success of curing this. So we did a jungle blood transfusion, which is taking blood and matching it in little test tubes, and if it doesn't react, taking blood from that person and directly giving it to that person. We screen it first for HIV, Hep B, malaria, and syphilis. And two of my medics were able to give her enough blood to stabilise her to get her to Thailand. And then it was amazing. The doctors thought this is a pretty terrible case. They said that the cancer was on her bowel, on her bladder, over both ovaries. It had reached up to her lung, and they weren't really sure whether they were going to be able to do too much. They gave her 3 rounds of chemo, and she started bleeding a lot, and they needed to do an emergency hysterectomy. And amazingly, the cancer in that time had shrunk, and it was just in her uterus and on one ovary. This girl was so amazed. She honestly thought that day, she just said, "I think I'm going to die." But we took her out anyway, and the next slide shows her 6 months later. It was 6 months after the end of her treatment, sorry. She gave her life to God in the process of being cared for from a very heavy Buddhist area. And she said it wasn't the words of what we spoke to her, but the action, the fact that we took someone from a village. She'd never seen a white person before. They'd never seen foreigners. And to think that we had taken her and invested in her and wanted her to have the best chance at a full life. And so she's back in her village and she's taken the gospel with her. So it's really exciting to be able to impact these really intense needs and really basic needs at the same time. And in doing that, I get to act out my faith, what God's put on my heart. And because I refuse to sing in church, I end up on the preaching roster more often than not. But my medics tell me that while they appreciate the words that I speak when I preach, it's the love that our medical team displays in the teaching and the looking after people that's really important. This is how you give birth in the jungle. This woman had a high-risk pregnancy, and we needed to induce her, and her baby at full term weighed 1.6 kilograms. And so at risk to the baby not lasting while she went into labour, we induced her, and a very angry little girl came out and a very hungry little girl, and within 4 weeks she'd doubled her birth weight. So, and that's her swimming in many amazing older women in my mum's town knit these little jumpers for me to give to the babies, and they're newborn size, and amazingly they managed to stretch up until they're 1 or 1.5 years of age. But this little girl, she just completely swam in her fuzzy little pink and white jumper. Yeah. So when I'm not in the jungle, I'm also doing training in Thailand. We try to bring our guys out. We've gotten passports for them now that it's possible to get passports, and we try to introduce them to healthcare systems in a different a different perspective. Try and run extra trainings. It's hard to get visitors 50 kilometres over the border. You have to walk, you carry everything on your back, so it's kind of steep and muddy in rainy season. So sometimes it's just easier to bring the guys out to us, and yeah, we'll do a lot of hands-on drama style trainings in Thailand. This little girl, she came from a village up in the northern part of Burma. She's Ta'ang, which is a very small people group, but it's where there's a lot of brutal fighting that's going on at the moment, and she was born with a cleft lip. So last year she was brought out for Operation Smile, and they were able to remove her crooked front tooth and join her lip. And she came out of surgery and said to her dad, "Who stole my tooth and glued my lip? What's going on?" But anyway, she also has a minor cardiac complication, and because of the situation in Burma, in her part of Burma, her father's had to join the local army again. Her mum has to work the field on her own, so it's not a huge cardiac problem, but it is a problem that needs a little bit of attention. And so not long before I came back to Australia, I was approached by a medic, a good friend from her area, and he came to me and in all seriousness asked me, he said, "I come on behalf of her parents. They would like you to become her mum. They would like you to bring her up and look after her." And it's, her dad was her, she's daddy's my best friend kind of little girl. And so it's really hard. And to think the desperation that must be on, I've not had children. Oh, I did think. I've not had children, but I've delivered a lot of them. And I work in families. And kids bring so much joy. And the thought of handing over your child to someone else, the level of desperation that must be happening in your heart to do that. But her dad had met me, and he knew me and trusted me, and he thought, if it's possible, if she can be her mum, she will get a good health care, she will get love, she will get education, she will have access to her family. Thramu will bring her back to visit. And it's hard because I'd love to. I can't. It's not legal. You can't adopt someone who has loving parents. But she's in this really fierce fighting zone. And so, just pray for this little girl, that God would find a way for her to get what she needs and for her family to remain as one. So when we need to transport patients, this is how we do it. It's called the jungle ambulance. And it's a stick of bamboo with a hammock attached to it, and the patient lies in the hammock. And my jungle heroes, often the guys are shorter than me. They're kind of scrawny, but they're strong, and we have to send out the word often saying that we need people to carry someone to the border. So they're carrying for 50 kilometres someone in the hammock. And the rainy season, dry season, whatever the season, they'll still do it. And so you've got this patient that you need to get out in a hurry, and the guys have sent out word, and you know that you need to get them on the path by 5:30, 6 o'clock at the very latest in the morning for them to make the river by nightfall, before nightfall, because once it gets to nightfall, the river shuts down and the Thai have control of the river, and they will shoot at boats going down. This is to protect their border. They don't know if it's, people carrying weaponry or things on the river. So as a result, the river gets shut down at night. So you've been up all night, and you've been with this patient, and you're waiting for the guys to arrive. And every time without fail, I get choked up and start to cry a little bit, because, just when you're thinking, wow, we're going to run out of time, and these guys just come. We're here, Thramu. We're here to do it. And they don't complain, and it's hard work. And then they just go, and these guys are my heroes, and I just think, wow, every single time. It never gets old, it never gets, uncomfortable. But this is a lady that I brought out just recently in May from our jungle medical school. We thought she had a breast abscess, and it turns out she actually had breast cancer. She's 28 years old. She has 3 beautiful young children, and I have this deep passion for mums and fighting hard for mums to be able to be mums to their kids for as long as they possibly can. And cancer is a really difficult one because it takes a long time and you're not always successful. But this woman, I said to her, if you want to fight, I'll fight with you and I'll find the money. And she said that she wanted to. She said, if it was just me, that's fine. I can go home to God. But she said, I have 3 children, and what will happen to them if I die? So she's had 5 rounds of chemotherapy. She's had a mastectomy. She's got 3 more rounds of chemotherapy, and then a few months of radiation therapy. And she's amazing. She's planning her Thanksgiving service when she gets back to the village. It's a great celebration, and I love that even though Christianity isn't predominant, it's certainly very common, but by far Buddhism and animism is the top religion. But when we have Thanksgiving services, the whole community, doesn't matter the religion, everyone comes and everyone very enthusiastically sings and praises God. And so this woman is already planning what she'll do when she goes home. Amazingly, she's lost her hair, but she's not lost any weight. And she just amazes me. She has her little boy with her. And, he only just turned 1 year old, and he doesn't understand what's going on with Mummy, and Mummy's always been fun. And so she'll come back from having had a round of chemotherapy, and she'll feel so rotten, and he'll just want to climb all over her and poke his finger up her nose, and she just giggles with him and plays with him and until he's ready to play with something else, and then she rests. And so I just also request that you would pray for her, that God would continue to sustain her. It's hard. She's now in Chiang Mai. When she was in Mae Sot with me, we were able to have her family there with her. But now that she's in Chiang Mai, she's on her own. And she's got a community of people around her who visit. But, it's hard being away from your kids and from your husband, and to be in a country where you don't speak the language, and to be waiting for that opportunity to go home. So I'd really appreciate ongoing prayers for her.